Good evening, everyone. Happy, what day is it? Is it
It's Monday,
Monday? It's
30th.
Monday. Well, it's in that time between Christmas and New Year's when you don't really know what day it is or where you are and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, welcome. I hope that you are going to tune in. So, I've got Rob Cross from all the way down in the western part of Kentucky, down in Murray. Got Chris Wyatt, as always, from Mount Juliet, Tennessee, and then David Henley, who's from Oldham County, joining us. So I hope you guys all had a good Christmas and I'm going to enjoy the next couple of days before things get real again. David, well, real for Chris and I. David and Rob are retired. So
True.
um, Chris is getting ready to welcome all of his middle school kids back with open arms.
Can't
And
wait.
all,
Can't wait.
all of the joy that comes with teaching
It's
middle school
fantastic.
in general.
It's fantastic.
It's great. I say that because my daughter is in seventh grade, and
It's my wheelhouse.
it is not her favorite. So
No,
she
she's fine.
tolerates
She and
it.
I would probably get along. She probably gets annoyed at the same stuff I get annoyed with, I bet.
Yes, she tolerates it, if that's a good way to put it. But anyway, thanks guys for being on. We got some things I want to I want to cover tonight. I actually just went down to visit all my family down in Murray, Kentucky, and I had to make a run yesterday to Walgreens to pick up something. And who did I run into? None other than Mr. Rob Cross in Walgreens. So got to see him. I actually haven't seen Rob in person in years, so glad I got to see him, catch up with him, and then I try to do all the Murray things when I'm in Murray, which is try to eat at all of the joints I like to eat at. Matt B's Pizza, they close because I think they usually close the week of Christmas,
Yeah.
and they do some cleaning. I forgot about that. However, I did make a trip over to Hardee's because I learned from you guys that Hardee's had their cinnamon raisin biscuits back, but I didn't really know. I didn't realize they had been gone. But apparently they're back. So I go in there to get one, and she's like, well, "We don't have them today." And she's like, "We have blueberry." I'm like, I'm all right. I'll just head back. So yeah, that I was really looking for. I was just going to get a single one, but I know Dave's a big fan of cinnamon raisin biscuits.
Huge.
Yeah, he actually has a pretty interesting story about cinnamon raisin biscuits from Hardee's.
As a matter of fact, I do. I'm glad you mentioned that. It's back, I don't know, 15 years ago, the first time they got rid of them. I fired off an email to Hardy's corporate headquarters. It was
Political activism.
it was snarky but clean. And what did I receive back in an email? A $5 coupon from Hardee's.
So my question is, I've not seen a Hardee's up here. What Hardee's did you frequent up here in Northern Kentucky? I haven't seen one.
Well, you know where the Wendy's is in Latonia?
Yes.
Right by Value City. Used to be one there. And then right up beside Cove Calf, there used to be one up there, up on top
Okay.
of the
Well,
hill.
when I moved up here, there were no Hardee's, so it must have been about 15, 16 years ago. Sounds about right.
Do you know?
And
Do you know where the mall is? Where I think um, it's there used to be one right beside the mall out there in Florence. So there were three
yeah,
of them in Northern Kentucky when I first moved there.
man. But yeah, I miss some Hardee's. But yeah, she's like, we have raisin. So the other thing I did was I went to the new Salmons, which is at the Pockets gas station right next to it. So I guess the owners of that station, I guess they worked it out with the people that own Salmons, and they taught them how to make the donuts and all that kind of stuff. So I go in there and I get a glazed donut, I get a chocolate covered donut, and then I get a sausage, egg, and cheese sandwich for myself. And she said, "Do you want it on a bun?" And I said, "Heck yeah, I want it on a bun." Because that was always what Salmon's was known for, was they would make their own buns. Then I see her I see the guy reach into like a bunny bread bag. I'm like, man, this is. Oh, also, she takes my order. I stand there. I don't move. There's nobody else around me, and I don't move. I don't go anywhere. I probably stand there for a minute, minute and a half. She looks up at me. She goes, "Hello, sir. Have you been served?" I said, "Yes, I just ordered." I said, "I just ordered." She goes, "Are you Dave?" "No. I just gave you my order." "Oh, okay." And right then and there, I knew this is not. Bless them for the effort, but not the same. So
Not the salmons you grew up with, huh?
No.
not even
Nobody
close.
in there smoking,
not,
was it? Like, when you go in there, somebody would definitely be in there, a bunch of people smoking.
Man. But
you ever had Red's Donuts in Paducah?
A couple times, yes. Very good. But Salmon's was always the for me. I'd always get the barnyards. They did have the barnyards, but I didn't try one. So, but anyway, it feels like college basketball kind of took Christmas vacation also. There just hasn't been a whole lot. Yesterday, they kind of got back on the rail a little bit. Did anybody watch Memphis and Ole Miss?
A little bit. I don't watch the whole game.
I watched it until Memphis started to pull away, but Memphis is pretty good. They're really talented. So we'll see what happens once they get to their conference schedule. We'll see if they can stay motivated to play each and every night. But they're really good. I think they're kind of a sleeper team if they can kind of hold things together. And then, of course, Kentucky plays tomorrow. They're back on. They play a 2:00 game on New Year's Eve day, which is kind of odd. It's going to be a Wednesday afternoon, and they play Brown. So hopefully they'll roll past them. I don't know a whole lot about Brown. What league are they even in?
That's an Ivy League school.
Ivy League school. So
it's in Providence, Rhode Island. I have been to the campus. I have a picture of the statue of the brown bear. Their nickname is the Bears, and their colors are brown.
Something tells me. I don't know. UPS? I don't know. But something tells me that they're not going to be able to stick to the same game plan that has caused Kentucky problems over the past few games, which is getting out and extending the defense. I might be wrong. I might be a complete inappropriate stereotype. But
here's a fun fact about Brown basketball: they allow the fewest 3-point percentage in the country.
Oh,
they are really good at 3-point attempts, not percentage attempts.
Yeah, fewest 3-pointers attempted in the country. Got 4 guys averaging double figures. Got a dude averaging over 20. They're not bad.
Okay, so maybe, but you know what? Kentucky's getting ready to go into the conference, and they could probably use a challenge.
Well, Kentucky should beat them by 30.
Yeah,
it should be 25-30.
But it could also be if Kentucky shoots 27.8%.
Yeah, then it's going to be a game.
It could be a 5 or 6 point game. Kentucky just doesn't have.
Because one thing you can't say about Brown, when you're getting your guys ready, you can say, "Hey, just remember, their guys are on scholarship too." But Brown's guys are on scholarship, academic. So you can't use that. You can't use that to motivate your guys.
Huh.
Just saying.
That is true. The Racers went to Hawaii, lost the first 2 games, bounced back, and won the last one. So that's pretty much all I'll say about Murray State basketball, men's basketball. Women's basketball seems to be rolling along pretty good, at a pretty good clip. But Yeah, college basketball, by the look of the schedule, it looks like it's going to pick up and get rolling again tomorrow. Kentucky's going to hopefully beat Brown, and then they got a huge game on Saturday right out of the gate. Top 10 matchup between them and Florida. Florida is undefeated. Any of you guys seen Florida play right now?
Yes.
Yes.
What are your thoughts so far on Florida? Mine is I don't know how well they shoot the ball. They are long and big.
Mm-hmm. They're
Kind
good.
of like they did last year, but just maybe more talent. Like they always have. They've always got some big guys, some goofy-looking white kids. They got a couple of real goofy-looking white dudes, maybe not from America. They play hard. They're not real finessey on offense, but they're going to give Kentucky trouble. It's exactly the kind of team that's going to give them trouble, I think.
So it'll be fun. It's going to be, starting out SEC conference play. Regardless of how good Kentucky's been in the past, it's always been tough. This year, it's going to be extra tough. So there was a story today that I saw, and we were texting, so you guys might have all looked at it. So Leonard Hamilton is the coach at Florida State. He's been at Florida State for a long time. Been coaching for a long time. Leonard Hamilton, I think, is in his mid 70s, although he looks
Former
like
UK
he's in his
assistant.
60s. Former UK assistant. Also, bonus points.
Austin P.
Nope. He played at UT Martin.
But he coached at Austin P. Got Fly Williams down there.
Yeah. He played at UT Martin back when they were Division II.
The Pacers. They were the Pacers.
Yeah. I used to teach with a guy. He taught at Simon Kenton High School, and he played at Martin with Leonard Hamilton.
Wow.
So, a little bit of a tidbit there. But anyway, long story short, he's being sued by 6 players, including former players.
None of them on the team.
He's being sued by 6 former players, one of which is a former Kentucky Wildcat, Cameron Fletcher, being sued for $250,000 each because they allege that they were promised $250,000 in NIL money, and it has not been delivered to them yet. So, did you guys read this story or research it?
I have looked into it. I've actually talked to somebody that deals with one of the players with their NIL. He's currently playing at another school, and he said that every player on the team, not just those 6 guys, everyone was promised $250,000 in NIL money. And at midway through the conference season, they had not received a dime of it. And they actually walked out of practice. They refused to practice the day before they played Duke. And the players were not going to play against Duke until Leonard Hamilton told them. And supposedly they have text messages that they'll enter into evidence that say all this stuff, where they have Hamilton texting the players saying, hey, you're going to get your $250K. I've got it. My business partners are going to get you the check. It's interesting. And the guy who was the head of the NIL collective for Florida State, I believe his attorney pulled out of the lawsuit, dropped the case, stopped representing him. He's one of the defendants. Stopped representing him because he had not received a dime in payment. You can't make this stuff up, and it's going to happen to a lot more people until some laws come in and change it.
Well, that people call it they always use the term, the analogy, the Wild West. What's the Wild West known for? Lawlessness, innocent people getting, but you get my point. Right now, it's the Wild West, and so part of me is I feel sorry for those kids, but the other part of me is like, why would you don't ever enter into a verbal agreement. you get something on paper, you get something that is a contract.
Yeah, you couldn't do that then, though, if the contract was illegal
It was
at that
2 years
point.
ago is when the deals were
Yeah.
made, or a
But if
year
your
and a
So
coach
half
tells
ago.
you something, it's like if he said you have a scholarship and all of a sudden you go to the bursar's office like you were dropping all your classes. We didn't really give you a scholarship, just kidding. I mean, it's be the same. Yeah, he hosed those kids. $250,000 times 12 players is a lot of dollars. You
Right.
didn't. There's somebody on that team that shouldn't have gotten told they were getting paid $250,000.
Cameron Fletcher would be one of them.
Right. But if you said you want $250,000, I'd be like, heck yeah.
Yeah. But then did it like we're going to find out at some point if a coach of a power school, like any coach, but a coach at an ACC school, was dumb enough to put something in writing and then go back on it and not follow through. Because if there's nothing in writing and there's actually no evidence, then Florida State, Leonard Hamilton's going to win the suit. If there's one single text message, the players are going to win the lawsuit. It's really going to come down to that. Uh, and I would expect they probably settle
but
for
here's
less
my
money.
thing. I'm not an attorney. I don't. Are text messages back and forth? Is that binding?
Man, a verbal contract. If I offer
It's
you
yeah,
something, you accept it, and we have
it's
terms,
proof,
that's contract.
right? That's proof of the verbal. That's proof that they had the intent to pay those guys, and those guys were promised that money. And every judge right now, and if it goes to, uh, a jury thing, where it would be a judge deciding it most likely, but every judge right now, who are they going to decide in favor of?
The players.
They're going to decide in favor of the players every single time.
It's capitalism now, fellas.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
The coaches are done. They've been making billions off these kids, and now the shoe's on the other foot. They don't like it. That's why them
Speaking of
old
Well, and
guys
which,
the
retiring. It's
but
Jim
it's
Larry
really,
Yaga, or whatever he
but
calls
it's
himself
really
now.
the
But
to me the NIL stuff though, and everybody says that and says the schools have been taking money and now the schools have to pay this money. The schools don't have to pay money till starting next year when they
right,
have to pay when they're allowed to pay $20.5 million in salary every year to athletes. The NIL money is not coming from the
no,
schools.
I'm not talking about that.
No,
I'm
I
just
know
talking
that. I
about
know what
kids
you're
are now
saying,
getting
Edwin.
money.
Yeah, I know what
Yeah,
you're saying, and they've
don't
always
like
kind
it.
of got they've always gotten money at a lot of places, uh, but man,
Mm-hmm.
not as much as they're getting now, and not legally. So like I'm all for it, but the people who talk about the schools are not wanting to pay these guys right now. It's not even the schools paying them; it's
Exactly.
boosters and businesses. So
it's think
nobody,
collectives.
they're not taking a cut from the school, and they're not hurting anybody. They're just going out and earning money that they should have always been able to earn. To me,
Exactly.
So what do you think down the road, Rob? Like, what kind of legislation is going to even things out? Because right now, as it stands, it is which schools have the most boosters, which schools have the broadest reach that can raise the most money. Do you think there will be a cap, or do you think they'll just let it be like University
well,
of Texas will have, always
here's
have more money than the University of Kentucky?
well
Or
a couple of things about that, Mike. First of all, it's always been about who has the most money. College
exactly, yeah,
athletics there have always been the haves and have-nots, and the have a little bit. It's always been about who has the most money. Legally, the way the courts are ruling right now, they can't go in and put a cap on NIL earnings. You shouldn't be allowed to because it's an individual going out making money based off of who they are. And in the United States, you can't limit that. The NFL can't put a salary cap on a guy's endorsement earnings.
Right.
And people try to compare it to salary caps in pro sports. The House settlement, if that actually takes place and they don't back out of it and go to actual trial, the House settlement is going to allow every university to pay up to $20.5 million in salary to student athletes. So the schools right now that are forward thinking, because that's coming in a year, They're deciding where are we going to put our money. So if you're Alabama, are you putting the majority of your money in football, or are you splitting it and trying to make sure basketball stays up there near the top? If you're Ohio State, what are you doing with your money? Is it all going to football? Because
I would say most of it. I would say most schools, most of it would have to go to football.
that's
Football
where
is what drives the bus financially.
yes, and that's where the money is. Even at the University of Kentucky, the football program brings in more money than the basketball program.
Mm-hmm.
Dave, how much NIL money you think you would have generated coming out of Carlisle County High School at South? What was it? Southern Indiana. Where did you go to
50
JUCO?
cents. Southeast Illinois College.
Southeast Illinois.
Harrisburg,
Harrisburg.
Illinois, home of WSIL
That's right.
TV3.
Channel 3
Uncle
on
Briggs
a
and the
cloudy
Funny
day,
Company.
pick it up real good.
Remember, hang it up. Remember Uncle Briggs and the Funny Company? At the very end, he said, "Hang it up," and they hung up the "it" sign.
No.
Dave,
Y'all don't remember that?
did you not get offers? Because back then PCC had a baseball team, right? They were a good program back then, right?
I had like PCC, Murray State for baseball, Southeast, and like McKendree. I was Air Force recruited me, but then my grades weren't good enough, and I got recruited by Dartmouth. My grades weren't good enough. I mean, I was a decent student, but I wasn't.
Not many are
Ivy
good enough
League.
for Dartmouth.
That's right.
But you know what Rob was saying? You know, back in when I was coaching at Murray State and Duquesne, they came in when the NCAA wanted to cut back on spending, and they changed the part-time assistant's job to restricted earnings.
Mm.
And then they said you could only make $12,000 from the first day of school to the last day of school, and you could only make $4,000 on camp.
Yep.
And so you had guys, you know, like Pete Gaudette, he was the big one that stood out because I think he ran Duke's camps, and there's no telling how many thousands he made, but he went from making all this money to 16,000. And you know, the NCAA sued, or the Coaches Association sued, and I think the settlement was $150-something million. I got quite a bit of that because you can't limit what someone makes. It's against the law.
Right.
I remember that term now. Restricted earnings.
That's what I was when I started. And you had a choice, didn't you, Dave? You had a choice to join the suit and accept the settlement, or keep going the way you were going.
It was a lot of paperwork, but I was like, you know, what the heck, I'll do it, and it paid off.
You got a big check.
Yeah. Speaking of Pete Gaudette, remember he got those losses when Krzyzewski had a bad back that year? They were awful.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Pete Gaudette got those losses. That's so bad. Anyway, I digress.
Yeah, so it's a mess, and until they get it, you know, they're going to have to figure something out. And I mean, this stuff in Florida State, it just goes to show that it's just lawlessness right now. And I don't know. I'm not an attorney, but you guys seem confident that the players are going to win if there was any correspondence at all between the two, and but it seemed like they had entered into an agreement. It's just interesting. I'll be interested to see whose pocket it will come out of. Will that come out of Florida State, the university's pocket? Will it come out of Leonard Hamilton's own pocket? Because supposedly it was his business partners, and he was like, "Hey, I need this money," and then they're like, "Y'all suck."
That's right. If you were better, we'd give it to you.
Hey, the big question is, what's Dabo Swinney going to do? Huh? Remember that? He said the day players get paid is the day I can get out of coaching. Well, they got NIL, and he said, well, they're not really getting paid.
Yeah, but they're getting paid.
Now they're getting ready to get paid. So Dabo going to have to put his money where he won't. He's a fraud.
Think he's going to walk away with he's going to give up the $9 million a year?
Yeah.
He's so wishy-washy.
These guys aren't giving up. And that kind of brings me to the other topic we had talked about was one of the big topics over the past week was Jim Larinaga, legendary coach at Miami. He took Miami to a Final Four, and years ago he took Georgia Mason to a Final Four. He said, I'm out halfway through the year. And so, and part of his reasoning was he was belly aching about the times and NIL and this, that, and the other, and he said he had enough of it. So, and we see coaches doing that. He's the first one that I've seen that has quit mid-year. Tony Bennett quit
before the
2 days
season.
before it started.
2 weeks before the season started. Um, so yeah, and part of me thinks that it's just a new age and a new era. Although I've listened to some sports podcasts and people talk about Jim Larinaga was one of the biggest. He bought that Final Four team with NIL money, and now he's complaining about what got him to the Final Four, which was the impetus to him going to Miami and getting a big fat raise. And now that he's not able to get the players he wants, and he's throwing his hands up, so that's where he's
Yeah.
catching a lot of criticism for. I don't know how fair or foul that is. I don't really know the whole situation, but on the surface, it looks like he's crying sour grapes to me. Rob, what do you think?
I know him a little bit. Okay, when I was working for Eddie Fields, he asked me to come up with a defensive plan to help the team, and I love the scramble. Henley, you remember scramble defense?
We
Okay,
ran it at
I
our
love it.
homes.
Jim Larinaga was at Bowling Green at the time. I called him expecting him to hoping he would let me talk to an assistant or something. Jim Larinaga answered the phone, spent 4 hours with me on the phone, sent me videotapes free of charge, sent me his personal notes, asked me if I wanted to come up and stay and watch practice and watch him put stuff in. Like, he didn't have to do that. I was a restricted earnings women's basketball coach at Murray State. Uh, so I like the guy, so I might be a little biased. He's also 75 years old. He didn't leave George Mason after they made the Final Four to go get a bigger check for a couple of years. He stayed there, and then he took the Miami job. Man, you make the Final Four. Like, if I was him, I would have retired after they made the Final Four. You're right. He was the first one. He did NIL better than anybody the first year. They bought Nigel Pack. They bought that whole team. Isaiah Wong, all those dudes. They were good. Okay, they had guards
Pack
that
was a
could
lot
play.
of money.
Yeah, Pack was like 900,000, I think, was the number. He was like the first guy that made big money. So they did all that with the Miami Boosters, but then right after that season, you make the Final Four, and your 8 returning players come in and say, "I'm entering the transfer portal. I want to leave." Like, I probably would have said, "You know what? This isn't for me. I'm done" at that point. But man, they quit in the middle of the season. They're not playing very well. The season's going bad. It may have been we don't know because we're not on the inside. That could be administration saying, "Hey, we're going to do something unless you step down right now. We need to go a different direction." And they say that's not what was said, but that's a possibility, man. I'm just telling you, having been in behind the scenes, there's no telling what that discussion was like. They could have just said, "We're going a different direction. You can go out on your own terms, or we can
Well,
make a change."
I think the trend you're going to see, and some schools have already implemented it, and I think that's what got Bill Belichick to North Carolina was they're going to have general managers.
Well, they do. Joy Williams, that was my boss for a few years at Murray State. One of my bosses is the GM, president of basketball operations or whatever for the men's program in South Florida.
So
And they're
she's
managing the
administrating
roster, all that kind of stuff.
all the NIL stuff, where it goes, who gets it, things like that.
Well, they work through their collective, but yes,
Oh.
determining how to build a roster and stuff, just like a GM position. Yep.
I mean, it seems logical with all, when you've got players being paid, like it just seems the next logical step.
I mean,
So
you're right. When it becomes a salary, like, it's really going to be that. I mean, it's really going to be professional sports, minor league level professional sports.
right. Also, I did want to take a couple minutes since we're getting to the end of the new year and getting into January. So this marks the end of the high school basketball Christmas and holiday tournaments. So Dave got to watch his former player Ricardo, our former player Ricardo. Did they win your tournament, or did they? How?
They did. They beat Central Hardee. I don't know. It's double figures, but yeah, they beat Central Hardee.
Yeah, yeah. So then, who ended up winning King of the Bluegrass?
I don't remember.
Was it St. X?
I think Bryant, Arkansas. No. St. X beat Bryant, Arkansas in the finals.
And then you had the Lexington Catholic tournament, which Chris and I are Callaway County grads. Callaway had a win over Trinity. Trinity is a little bit down, it seems like. I don't know if they have somebody hurt or whatever. Callaway has a really good player that's out too for about another month. So, but yeah, now it's now you're really getting into the teeth of district tournament play, and all the football players are back and getting their legs under them. So about another 3 or 4 weeks, we should really start seeing which teams are because when you got these schools that have a lot of football players, man, it's just about getting those guys ready by the time February rolls around, right? Getting them in shape and getting in basketball shape anyway. So it'll be a fun time. The other thing I wanted to touch base on was the college football playoffs. The next round is tomorrow. There's only one game on tomorrow, right? Is that Boise, Penn State?
Yes.
Yep.
All right. Let's run down through these real quick because you have that one tomorrow, which that one is the Fiesta Bowl. And then on Tuesday, you've got that's tomorrow. So Penn State, Boise State. Then Wednesday, you've got the Peach Bowl, which is Texas, Arizona State. Texas is a 12-point favorite as of now, which I would take that. I would take Arizona State to cover that all day. Then you've got the Sugar Bowl, which is Notre Dame and Georgia down in New Orleans. Then you've got the Rose Bowl, which is an actual, real, traditional Rose Bowl teams. You have the old Pac-10 Oregon versus the Big Ten Ohio State. So Ohio State is a 2.5-point favorite in that one. Who do you guys have Ohio State and Oregon?
Buckeyes.
Same, Buckeyes.
Chris?
I take Oregon in the points, right? You're just saying to win. Oregon's getting 2, yeah?
Yes.
I'll take that.
And
You
then
can't even pick a winner. You got to do something with betting, don't you?
I mean, why they put it out there? I mean, I don't know. Ohio State looked
That's
like
a good
hot
TV
garbage.
show.
Looked like hot garbage.
It's a TV
show.
show.
It is a TV show. Notice how they put the 2 games they thought were best in the afternoon and evening. The one they thought was the worst is tomorrow night when people are not watching
Well,
TV.
of course. Who wants to watch? Who's going to watch Boise State and Penn State?
Arizona State and Boise State should have played each other last week.
I'm going to watch it
to
because
try
it's
to
on.
get to play someone. It's not Arizona, it's Arizona
Yeah.
State. That's not Herm Edwards. I'll give you a nickel. I'll give you $1
Herm
if you know who
Edwards.
Arizona State's head coach is. Over under.
The fight, I don't know.
Right. Okay.
He's a hothead. He's a hothead. I know that. Jake Plummer was the quarterback there one time.
Truth.
Let's see, and then
Reggie Jackson went there to play football, and somebody dared him to try out for the baseball team, and the rest is history, as they say.
There you go.
did not know that. Texas.
Ricky
and,
Henderson's real name is Ricky Henley.
I did hear that somewhere. Somebody told me.
Probably me.
It was.
Notre Dame and Georgia. Georgia is a 1-point favorite. They have their backup quarterback.
Don't matter.
I'm calling upset on that. I'm calling that the upset.
Yeah,
Backup quarterback is not very good.
But Georgia's not favored. Who's favored? It's pick 'em. It's one.
I have no idea. I don't
It's
have
one.
any idea. I just know.
I'm looking right here on the
Dame.
CBS Sports app. It says Georgia -1.
Okay, so it's a pick 'em. 1 point.
Yeah,
You can't win
pretty
by
much.
less than 1 point.
Who's
I
going to
think
win?
Yeah.
SEC.
All right.
Okay.
So, but it's in New Orleans, and I mean, I think Notre Dame's going to travel well. There's going to be a good crowd on both sides.
Yeah.
So yeah, that'll be. As far as the Penn State and Boise State goes, I can't pick James Franklin in anything, so I'm going to go Boise State in that one.
That's a lot of points, too. 13.5.
Well, I'm looking right now. It's 11.
Okay, not as
But
excited about that then. So
you,
a bunch of people bet Boise State and
yeah.
bet that number down.
You also have Alabama and Michigan tomorrow.
That's a
That's
big
the
spread. That's 2
that's the
touchdowns.
ReliaQuest Bowl right now. Michigan or Alabama's favored by 14.5. You
And they
have
win by 14.5.
you have the Sun Bowl, which is one of the oldest bowls there is. That's in
Remember
Louisville.
when it was called? Didn't it used to be called the Tony Tiger Sun Bowl?
I don't know about that,
I think
but
so.
I do remember the Sun Bowl. You also had back in the day. You had the Copper Bowl. You had
The Sun
uh,
Bowl in El Paso.
I think so. It's somewhere out. I think somewhere out west. But and then you have Baylor, LSU, and the Texas Bowl, whatever that is.
It's in Texas.
So Chris is having some technical difficulties. When he gets back on here, he's got a funny story I want him to share with us.
And let me ask you a question while we're waiting for him.
Go ahead.
Who is opting out? How many people are sitting out in those bowl games?
The
Like, how do you bet a bowl game?
You don't.
When,
You don't.
I mean, the teams aren't the same. Like, it's just not even the same team.
well, I would have assumed they had taken all that into account. Do they not?
Well, I'm sure they do, but as a bettor, how do you know how the third string wide receiver in the slot is?
It's just for fun. I put none money on any of it. It's just for fun.
That's why. That's why
How
you
much
shouldn't
did you
gamble your. That's why you should be a better steward of your money, Rob. And
Well,
not
I don't bet. I don't bet on
Don't
them.
gamble, kids. Don't gamble. It's just for entertainment.
Don't gamble.
Don't gamble,
I
kids.
do not.
Just
You
for
remember
entertainment.
this? You guys watch The Sopranos? Did you remember that episode where Mr. Satriali they took a meat cleaver to his pinky finger and and then young Tony happened to see it and his dad set him down and goes, "I know you like Mr. Satriali, but he gambled. Don't ever gamble, son, or you'll get your fingers cut off."
Lesson learned.
Anyway, before we get off here, Chris did have a story he wanted to share, and he teased us with it a little bit, texting back and forth. So he was rummaging through some garbage.
Well, sort of. So I will preface it by saying our next door neighbors are from Las Vegas. And so they're not like any other regular people I've ever dealt with. They're perfectly nice. They're just people that chose to live in Las Vegas. So I'm walking out my front door to go for a walk yesterday. Garbage day is Sunday in our neighborhood. So I look at their garbage. There's always a huge amount of garbage. They throw many, many things away. So I look over and there is an office chair just sitting on the curb, appears to have absolutely nothing wrong with it. So I keep walking and I text Carla and I'm like, hey, ask the neighbors if I can have that chair that's sitting out on the curb.
You shouldn't have to ask. It's public
Well, I know,
property.
but it's just weird, like on my Ring camera, like this hillbilly dude from next door is rolling my chair out to anyway. So then she sends me a picture of another chair, and I was like, what's this? And they said, well, they have another office chair. You can have it too. They're moving, so I guess they don't want to take anything with them. So we got 2 office chairs for the price of 1. They put it by the curb because the seat was dirty. It has a small stain on it. She said, well, you'll have to clean the seat. I said, well, you can handle it. So we start looking at it because having taught in public school, Dave, you probably know my teacher furniture is not super nice. My chair is in huge disrepair, so I saw a chance to get a better chair out of the garbage than the one that's currently in my classroom.
Good move.
It is better. It works. So now we have 2. So we get one of them. We roll them out to our back porch, just screen down to keep them so I can go to school. I start looking at the one that was in the garbage. It's got this little symbol on it. I'm like, I think that's an X chair. Are you familiar with an X chair?
No.
Some of them cost upwards of $3,000.
What?
They like massage you, they're heated, all this stuff. So I look, they're like advertised on like podcasts and like save $1,000 on the X chair. So if you're saving $1,000 on something, then
Yeah.
you know it's really expensive. So we looked this one up. It was only $974,
Still.
and they just put it out on the curb because the seat was dirty. So now
People
I have
got
a
more money than sense.
974 garbage chair. That's right.
Well, hopefully it feeds you grapes as you
It does
sit
not do
and
that, but
deal with middle school boys.
if I sit back, it probably will not like almost throw me backwards like my current chair does. I have to sit on the edge of it to keep from the back flipping off.
Well, someone else's trash is another man's treasure.
That's right.
Congratulations on your treasure.
Thank you. It's Christmas and New Year's all rolled together. It's a Festivus miracle.
Did you fumigate that chair?
Haven't cleaned it
Like
yet.
Eddie?
Haven't cleaned it yet. Yeah.
Huh. Well, all right, boys. That's about all we got for tonight. Thanks for being on.
Yes, sir.
And I'll put this out, so if you guys can share it and tag some folks or whatever, it'll get more exposure. So we'll talk to you next week. Everyone have a good night and
All right.
see ya.
Sounds good. See ya.
Lisa.